What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of the State of the Steelers. I'm Daniel, your Steel Curtain Network host. And you know what? I just don't buy it. I don't buy anything that the Steelers are trying to sell at this point. I haven't been buying anything that they've been saying for a while. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. Last year, they kind of scarred me when they came out and started saying things like Mason Rudolph's going to be the quarterback and there's going to be competition. They love him. They love what they saw at the end of last season, the 2023-2024 season, and what he was able to do and how they were going to be bringing him back. And at the end of the day, it was a bunch of smoke and mirrors. None of that ended up coming out to be true. Steelers jumped on Russell Wilson as soon as he was eligible or available to talk to other teams. No waiting, no none of this, none of that. And I just don't buy it. I don't buy the coaching changes that they stated that they were going to be making earlier this season. I don't buy anything at this point because, like I've said multiple times, when it comes to this team, it's you got to watch what they do, not listen to what they say at this point, because it's all smoke and mirrors. Welcome back to the show, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, hit that 5-star if you're listening to this on Apple or wherever you're listening to this. And so let's start off with this conversation with me not buying anything that they said about the coaching staff. They said there was going to be some changes. I think the only change that has been made at this point is the inside linebacker coach, and I think that there was a secondary coach that was just added to the roster of coaches, so to speak, but nothing too big. No wholesale changes. I know a lot of folks were looking at maybe perhaps the offensive line coach as being a guy that needed to get replaced. I know a lot of folks were looking at defense as a whole, just because of the debacle and the collapse that occurred at the end of the season there with this team. Offensively, Arthur Smith had a couple of looks, in some different places as far as being a head coach, which I was surprised for, given especially the collapse, as I mentioned, mainly also on the offensive side as well. I mean, it wasn't just a defensive collapse. The offensive collapse, the time of possession was low. First, the 3 and outs on the first drive were horrible. I don't even think the Pittsburgh Steelers scored a touchdown on the first drive of any game this entire past season. And so when you put all those things together and you see how poor they went down the line, I'm surprised that he got the looks that he got. I thought he wasn't going to get any, Arthur Smith, that is. But he did. And, he ended up not getting hired from anyone, so he'll be back in the black and gold, presumably. I mean, unless he gets fired, which, in Pittsburgh, that's something that's hard to do for the Rooneys to fire a coach, regardless of anything that goes on. But we heard some things, right, in the last couple of weeks when it comes to the offensive coaching, play calls, quarterback, and scheme and things of that nature, philosophy. Apparently, and this has come out here recently, and I think it came out by Jerry Dulac, who I think has been more of a insider for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think his connection to the Steelers isn't necessarily the players. I mean, it could be. It definitely could be. But I thought that Mr. Dulac's sources were internal within the Steelers brass, so to speak. But he had put out there that there was some sort of conflict there between Russ and Arthur Smith, and that after the game against Cincinnati, where the Steelers ended up putting 44 points, that a lot of that was because Russ went and did his own cooking, right? Russ cooked. He changed the plays. He changed what he wanted to do, those type of things. And apparently, reports are that Arthur Smith didn't like that. He apparently wanted, Russell to run the plays that he wanted to, and not necessarily sabotage Russ the rest of the year, but put him in a position where the plays that he could change or the routes that he could change were only the ones that were designed by Arthur Smith. He couldn't take over the playbook or the play call in that instance and change things to his liking or whatever the case may be. Remember back in the day when, like, for instance, Big Ben would go, not necessarily off the rails, but off the playbook, and he would be changing the routes that certain receivers were running and things of that nature. It kind of seemed like that's what they were trying to allude, or he was alluding that that's what Russ was doing. And he didn't want him to do that. He wanted us to play within the rules and within the confinements of the playbook that Arthur Smith had developed, not running routes and things that weren't from Arthur Smith's playbook. Now, this was a very pro-Russ article, in my opinion, obviously. And I mean, I didn't find it, how can I put this? It coming out from Dulac and from the Post-Gazette like that, I just felt that it was maybe there was some problems there with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback, maybe even with the offensive coordinator and And the head coach, I mean, he was out already looking for head coaching positions, which, again, you don't know when those opportunities are going to arise. So you're going to have to take advantage of those when they come. And so him being and taking head coaching job interviews isn't a sign that there was some sort of turmoil, but it doesn't mean that there wasn't turmoil there either. Now, there's been some other reports that have come out saying that no, that wasn't the case. But what we do know is, and I think I mentioned this with Shannon White on The Hangover on Monday. Make sure you guys go back and tune and check that out, because I said that before any of these reports came out. I had said that there was speculation, I guess, that a lot of what had occurred against Cincinnati in Cincinnati, where the Steelers won big, was that Russ changed a lot of the plays. That was supposed to be a heavy run schemed game plan, and because of what he was seeing from the Cincinnati Bengals, he changed the plays and they went more towards a heavier passing game scheme, which ended up being what the Pittsburgh Steelers needed to have to win that game. And that was a rumor back then. That wasn't anything that just recently came out. After that, obviously, offensively, they went down the tube. Now, I mentioned it, like I said before, with Shannon White. Before any of these reports came out, I said, is it possible, or it sure does sound like that the reins were taken out of underneath Russell Wilson's capability, so to speak. They took away the powers from him to do those type of things. We're finding out that there may have been some sort of turmoil between the two, Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson. To be honest with you, this sounds all too familiar, including changing the plays and changing what the quarterback sees. I mean, isn't this something that was argued about, maybe perhaps a rumor that Kenny Pickett had a problem with Matt Canada not allowing him to change the plays and things of that nature, forcing him to run the plays that he wants or within the structure of the playbook or what they had practiced versus what they're seeing right in front of them. I think this has been a constant issue, right? And, you know, it boils down to like, well, is it really these offensive coordinators that are egotistical, that are like, hey, this is my offense, you want to run it my way? Or is there a different answer there? Because this has been the multiple offensive coordinators who have had this, from the outside looking in, similar response, right? I don't know. I'm not inside the building, so I can't say that, yeah, you know, this is in fact what it looks like. This is what's going on. But from the outside looking in, it sure does look like the head coach may have something to do with limiting the quarterback's positioning or their ceiling, right? They're trying to limit turnovers and things of that nature by limiting what they can do. But at the same time, in limiting the possibilities of turnovers and limiting the possibilities of scoring and touchdowns and progress, and which is also putting the defense on the field more often and getting them tired, fatigued, and injured. But so I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to buy there. Is the offensive coordinator? Is the quarterback? You know, some part of me wants to say that, hey, you know, offensive coordinator, if you're out there and your team is putting up 44 points and you just scored X amount of points and everybody's looking at you right now, giving you all the credit because that's what everybody was doing at that time. Everybody's looking at the combination between Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson. Like, yeah, these are the two guys. These are the answer. This is who you want. That's what everybody was looking at the time. You know, you're going to go away from that and just, all right, let's go back to 17 points a game. Let's look really horrible. I mean, and this season ended up, let's just say it ended up with only one playoff win. Let's just say the Steelers go into Baltimore, or let's flip it and reverse it. Let's say the Steelers ended up winning one more game. And before the collapse, they go and they actually host a playoff game, win said playoff game, and then lose in the divisional round. Let's just say that ended up happening. Collapse like there was offensively. And the Steelers were able to continue to maintain to put up 22 to 24 points per game. Now, nothing eye-dropping or anything like that. I think that Arthur Smith has a much higher probability of having a head coaching job right now than obviously what occurred thus far in the offseason. So really did himself an injustice or an favor by doing so. I mean, he could have, especially like if you're having some problems with your offense, with your quarterback, and you know, he's running the show. Maybe you want to get out of there. Maybe it's not the right fit for you. But you know, that just doesn't seem right. That don't sound like what ended up happening. Now let's talk about the quarterback position, because well, at the end of the day, when it comes to the offense with the coaching staff altogether, I didn't buy that there was going to be any change, and I'm glad I didn't, because those that did would have lost hard and lost big, because there was not much change, and I don't foresee a lot of changes happening, to be honest with you. As far as the coaching staff goes, players, that's that could be different, especially in some key positions. Right now, the biggest position that everybody's talking about is the quarterback position. But we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a few seconds for a few minutes for our sponsors. We get back, we're going to talk about that quarterback position, what I don't buy, what I do buy. Then we're going to talk about Big Ben, and then we'll also get into the Super Bowl. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few words from our sponsors. Hey, welcome back. Thank you for sticking tuned with us. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, stillcurrentnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Go check out the new layout. Go check out the new thread, so to speak. You'll like it. And while you're there, check out the other podcasts that we have going on. The next time you'll see me is on the YouTube channel, stillcurrentnetwork.com, or the Still Current Network YouTube channel. I apologize. On Monday with Shannon White. Afterwards, audio only will be aired out as soon as it's over. So you don't want to miss that. So make sure you're all subscribed up and everything else. All righty. So back into the conversation of things that I don't buy. And that's going to be this quarterback position right now, the quarterback room, the current quarterback room right now. Well, currently there's nobody there. Russ and Justin Fields are both going to be unrestricted free agents at this point. Neither of them are signed to the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. I think Skylar Thompson may be the only quarterback at this point signed to the roster for 2025, 2026. And I highly doubt that he's going to end up being the guy that's going to be the Steelers' number one QB. Now, is it going to be Russ? I don't know. Glazer, who is a friend of Tomlin's, mentioned earlier this week he didn't think it was going to be Russ. It didn't seem like he was too keen on it being Fields either. I don't think so either. I know a lot of people were thinking that it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be Fields. It's going to be Russ, just because, Rooney came out and mentioned something to the effect that, hey, one of these guys is going to be, the quarterback. I think Tomlin even mentioned something about that. Justin Fields can be the guy that's in the pole position next year. Not that he is, but that he could be. He also mentioned that on a 17-game season that either one of these guys can be 17-game starters for a franchise. And he's said some things that are more glowingly, and I would say that he's also said some things that were more derogatory towards the previous quarterbacks, like one time mentioning that with the options between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are more attractive options than what he's had in the past to deal with when it came to positioning battles. For instance, Mitch Trubisky versus Kenny Pickett. He had two unattractive options and go with the lesser of two evils, so to speak. And that he felt that he had better options here with Justin and with Russ, which obviously you're going to say that while they're in the building. I wonder what his thoughts are going to be after the season. And once they are officially either on or off of the roster and he's no longer they're his players, to get an, I guess a greater mindset or an idea or a more honest opinion about what he thinks about that battle, like we got with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky being an unattractive battle there for him. But a lot of people are saying it's Russ, it's this. A lot of folks are saying, man, Justin, he went 4-2, this, that, and third. But I'll be honest with you guys. When he went 4-2, Justin Fields, that is, I was ready to see Russ. I was ready to see Russ then. I would have been ready to see Mason Rudolph. It was Mason behind him. I would have been ready to see Kenny Pickett if it was Kenny behind him, because the ball just wasn't going right. And there was a lot of fumbles. Quarterback to center exchanges were a constant issue. And since we didn't see that issue with Russ and Frazier, and I think also McCullen was in there a little bit as well. It just kind of seems like I think that the major issue there with that connection or that exchange there between QB and center was more to do with Justin Fields probably not being 100% settled into that position. Probably also because what I mean by that is because he under center is not really something that you see a lot of in today's Pee Wee football, Pop Warner, college, those type of things that are leading up to the pros. Even in the pros, is under center is something that has been gone away from slowly. There's only a handful of teams that really play under center as much as the Pittsburgh Steelers do. And then again, there's a reason why a lot of folks say that when they see the Steelers offense playing, it looks like they're playing 1990s offense, because it's very reminiscent of that. Well, anywho, I honestly think that if they were going to bring back one of these guys, if one of these guys were their quarterback, and they felt comfortable enough to say, hey, we can't lose this guy, regardless of what else is out there. Maybe even if this isn't the guy for the future, but we can't lose this guy for this year, especially given everything that they went through last season trying to acquire wide receiver number 2 and how that continually bit them in the rear all the way until the end of the season. My assumption is you probably don't want to go through that again. I don't think that's a really win. That's not something that a winning formula to go out there and try to, allow players to see what their worth is and to see if anybody else is willing to or is able to convince the said player that you want on your team to go somewhere else for either more money or a better possibility of playing time or whatever the case may have been. You don't want that, right? You're going to want, and I don't think the Steelers have ever played in that manner or have ever been in that position. They've drawn the line like, hey, this is where we're going to be at. But I don't think they're going to be, they've ever been a team like, for instance, remember the Ravens when they did that with Lamar Jackson? They said, all right, somebody give us a couple first round picks and you can get Lamar Jackson and y'all have to agree, blah, 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 blah. They put him out there to see what his worth was. Not very many teams are willing to do something like that. And, when it comes to a player like Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, who today aren't elite, today aren't that Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and either they potentially are or is in Russ, who has been, or Justin, who could be. I mean, that's a big statement to say right now, but he's still fairly young. He still can have a rejuvenated career, those type of things. But the way it sits now, neither one of those guys, the way they're playing today, are Hall of Fame quarterbacks today. So, it's not something that like I said, you would be like, all right, well, let's still go see what's out there. In my opinion, if you're a Russell Wilson or if you're a Justin Fields, if somebody says, hey, we're going to give you pole position, you're probably jumping on that. Because I don't know how many opportunities you're going to get. You're not a superstar that's going to have 4 or 5 teams saying, all right, we want you to start for our team. That's not going to happen. And so I don't buy that these guys, whether it's Russ or whoever, are just waiting to see what happens. Similar to like last year with Mason Rudolph. A lot of people were saying, well, it'd be smart of Mason if he were to wait and see what other teams offer him, see if he's going to be getting another offer from another team that's better than the Steelers. And a lot of people thought that's what was happening when he wasn't signing her, but, a lot of people were like, well, maybe he should sign already. Like, why hasn't he signed? Kind of find out the Steelers didn't give him an offer until the very, very end. And so, in my opinion, based on what they were saying and what they ended up doing, those were 2 different things that ended up showing that they really weren't that interested in bringing Mason back. Russ, as soon as he was able to speak with teams, pretty much signed up. Same thing the year before with Mr. Trubisky. He was the free agent of the town, right? Talk of the town, free agent, the hottest quarterback free agent going into that free agent year. Signed right away, real quick. And for a lot less than what a lot of people were thinking at the time, too, remember. But that's because when you're in that position, you don't have, what's the term? Well, there's like a saying, beggars can't be choosers, right? If somebody's offering you the position of the starting position or to be the starting quarterback that year, you're going to take it because you're going to have to rejuvenate your career. If you pass up on that, there's no guarantee that somebody else is going to offer you first team, pole position, or practice squad. So you got to take the positions as they come and when they come, those opportunities. And so for Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and for those to say, they're just waiting to see what happens in free agency, it'd be their best, see how much they can gather. I don't know if I buy that. Now, moving on a little bit to Ben Roethlisberger and some of the comments that he has made. He was talking about some comments that Edelman made about how the Steelers don't change. He agreed with those. I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but in reality, I think that's been beaten like a dead horse by now. Obviously, I think everybody knows that's true. Tomlin don't change. The defense don't change. But what I do want to talk about are some of the other comments that he made, and also the possibility of him not being a first round or first year ballot Hall of Famer. What was his name? Eli Manning just got snubbed, right, for not being in the Pro Bowl the Hall of Fame. He went to 2 Super Bowls. He has 2 Super Bowls as well. Now, his numbers aren't quite as good as well as Ben Roethlisberger, obviously. When it comes to the hardware, they both got 2 Super Bowls. I don't think either one of them have an MVP. But when it comes to other things, so Ben Roethlisberger's 5th in career And passing yards with 64,088. Manning is 11th with 57,023. So a little bit further behind. Passing TDs, Ben is 8th. Manning is also at 11th. Passer rating, Ben is at 21st. Manning is 66. Interceptions, Ben Roethlisberger is 23rd with 211 interceptions. Manning is 12th with 244 interceptions. So Manning had more interceptions than Ben Roethlisberger, and I think he even obviously had a shorter career because he's already up for the Hall of Fame, and Ben wouldn't be eligible for another couple years, I believe, until 27, I think. Quarterback wins, Ben is 5th, Manning is 14th. Now, I think that there's more to them, their comparisons head to head to see if Ben will get in. I think Ben obviously should be a first year ballot Hall of Famer. What concerns me are, one, the off the field stuff. Those things did occur. I think that those were some of the reasons why he was snubbed for a lot of things, especially around that time frame in his career, whether it be Pro Bowls, those type of stuff, MVP talks, MVP of the league, because there were several years where he had the accolades, the yards, the intangibles and the tangibles to be a player, a MVP player, even with the likes of Manning and Brady and Rodgers also in the league, who also had won, which I think is another reason why it wasn't so. What's what I'm looking for? It didn't look as bad, I guess, that Ben didn't get an MVP because he had those other players that were able to play to that level as well. It would have been more obvious if the competition wasn't as top as it was, and so during that time frame. But I digress. So, is there a danger? Maybe. He don't have an MVP. He did lose one Super Bowl. He has the off the field issues. I think the other thing that might play a role is, all right, how many other players are going to be up for the Hall of Fame at the same time as Ben Roethlisberger? So you have Adrian Peterson, who was 5th all-time leading rusher. He definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he'll get in his first time around, but I definitely do believe that Adrian Peterson should be there. Rob Gronkowski, 3rd in career touchdowns by a tight end. I mean, he's probably going to end up being a Hall of Fame tight end. I just don't know if he's a first ballot. Andrew Whitworth. I think a lot of his, I don't know. I mean, he was a good player, obviously. He's also a broadcaster. I think a lot of his, kind of like Howard, because it's his work as in the NFL that got him his Hall of Fame, right? It wasn't just being a coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was also his time as a player, his time as a special teams coach with the Browns, his time as a coach, his time as not a broadcaster, but as an NFL personality on CBS, talking about the NFL and things of that nature for as long as he has. So it's the body of work that he's done in the NFL, and I think that has a lot to do with also with Whitworth. Alex Mack, Richard Sherman, Antonio Brown. These are guys that are that could be or should be locks in the 2027 Hall of Fame. Or not locks, I'm sorry, but these are the competition with Ben. Antonio Brown, I think, is a guy that should definitely be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Will he? He's a guy that has some more recent off the field issues, so I highly doubt that. But he's a guy that I think should. I think Richard Sherman may end up getting it. Adrian Peterson. I would say Ben Roethlisberger as well. This upcoming year, next year, between Ben's year and now, you're going to have Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Jason Witten, Frank Gore, and Phillip Rivers. If Phillip Rivers gets in, there's no way that Ben Roethlisberger doesn't. But I would have thought that if Phillip Rivers got in, that Eli Manning would have gotten in. So I do think that since Eli didn't get in, I think there's more of a chance that Phillip doesn't get in because of that. And then you have Ben Roethlisberger being the first quarterback from the 2004 NFL draft class to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I like it. Ben had made some other comments that we're going to use. I wanted to talk on real quick before we call it a show, or before we talk about the Super Bowl. And that had to do with Myles Garrett. You mentioned that Myles Garrett wanted to do he requested a trade to get out of Cleveland to go win a Super Bowl. And Ben Roethlisberger said on his footballing podcast, I don't necessarily blame Myles. I think he sees, as Coach Tomlin would say, The sand is passing through the hourglass. There's no hope for that team winning a Super Bowl in the next 5 to 7 years. And I couldn't agree more with Ben Roethlisberger and his assessment of the Cleveland Browns. I think he's actually giving them a benefit of the doubt, or actually giving them a 5 to 7 years as a grace period. It may be longer. It may be longer. I think that team is cursed, and we'll see. But I like the comments there. As far as the Super Bowl that's going to be happening, it's going to be the Chiefs versus the Eagles. To be honest with you, I have reasons that I hope the Chiefs don't win. I have reasons I hope the Eagles don't win. In the end, my prediction will be, I think that the Chiefs will end up winning this game because of the refs on a controversial call at the end of the game, 32-28. But a game that should have easily and should have probably gone to the Eagles. I'm going to watch the game. I kind of don't want to, just because of it just seems like the same show over and over again at this point. But football is my life, and I'll be hating myself if I don't watch it for a very long time, because football will be out for a very long time. Well, at least actually on the field football, the draft, free agency, OTAs, all those things will be coming in from here until preseason. Until training camp starts in the summer. But football on the field, this will be the last game. So I'll definitely be tuning in. Again, I think the Chiefs are going to win. They're going to do a three-peat, and we're going to have to hear about this crap for I don't know how long. Taylor Swift may end up writing a song about it. We'll see. I hope not. I hope that's not the case, but that's who I think is going to win. Let me know what you guys think of wherever you guys are listening to this. But until next time, we'll see you guys then. Peace.